Good afternoon, Mr. President, our distinguished guest speaker, Honorable Marc H. Morial, students, faculty, and the college community. Welcome. The Presidential Lecture Series invites a broad range of highly accomplished men and women from the professional, academic, artistic, and political worlds to dialogue with the Medgar Evers College community on issues of historical and contemporary importance. By providing a forum for the free exchange of ideas and issues, the college continues its mission for promoting intellectual curiosity, political engagement, and social commitment. Originally conceived as part of the freshman year program, the Presidential Lecture Series has now become a college-wide program, inviting and welcoming students of all academic disciplines. The stated purpose of the series is to expose the entire student population to an array of individuals whose experience, commitment, and multicultural perspectives will serve as an inspiration to the college community. Medgar Evers College, through its presentation of the Presidential Lecture Series, reaffirms its commitment to excellence, to the transformation of powers of education, and to providing our students with the inspiration and tools that they need to realize their personal visions. We remain committed to creating success one student at a time. Again, welcome, and I thank you.
I now have the honor of bringing forth the introducer of today's presidential lecture. He is an internationally renowned educator, a visionary leader, a Nehemiah in our community. Yes, you can applaud. The progenitor of the pastoral presidency, Dr. Edison O. Jackson, our own.
Thank you, Dean Flatteau, for those kind introductions. And let me say to you, our students, how proud we are to see you here today. And we hope that you will keep copious notes. Do two things for me. One, cut off your cell phones if they're on. Secondly, please stay until 1:10. Don't leave before 1:10. We're running a little behind schedule, so I just wanted to make that announcement. We could not have found a better person to come to Medgar Evers College to give the presidential lecture during Black History Month. Our speaker for this occasion has distinguished himself first in terms of preparation, education, graduating from University of Pennsylvania, Georgetown Law Center, Georgetown University. Then using those skills as he moved up the ladder using the political process in order to be a mover and shaker and a transformer. The Honorable Marc Morial understands that one person can make a difference. He understands that as a leader, one must be compassionate, but also have a vision of where you want to take an organization, a city. He has served as 2 terms as the mayor of New Orleans. And in the bio printed in your program, you can see some of the major accomplishments that he was able to create during his tenure. And what is also very significant, when his second term ended, 70% of the citizens of New Orleans wanted him to stay, that is his popularity, that he had created new opportunities, new jobs, employment opportunities, housing, and bring in a national sports team to New Orleans. And that is a major achievement in and of itself. But dealt with police corruption, dealt with the issues that we face every day. Then it's not surprising that the National Urban League, when they were looking for a new president, selected this distinguished leader to lead an organization that has a wonderful history of making a difference and raising the question of the state of the black family, raising the question and challenging the establishment, saying, why can't we do better by those who are most vulnerable in our society? And so he's taken on the helm of this great organization, and one of his first, among many initiatives, was to look at the plight of black males in this country. And he did not think it robbery to raise the question, and in some cases make us feel uncomfortable in raising the question and asking, can we not do better? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce this distinguished American, the Honorable Marc Morial.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here at Medgar Evers College, named after one of the great servants and great crusaders of the 20th century, the late Medgar Evers. And I am honored to be with Dr. Edison Jackson. And I'm glad to be with this Edison because it looked like the other Edison was playing games with the lights. But this Edison Jackson, ladies and gentlemen, is a great leader and an innovator. He just showed me the drawings for 2 new buildings that are going to be built to expand Medgar Evers College, and most of you will be graduated, will be gone on to big jobs with big money by the time they are built. But I think, Dr. Jackson, you deserve a round of applause. It takes a lot. You know, it takes a lot to convince the people in Gracie Mansion and Albany that Brooklyn deserves the best and deserves the best buildings, that Medgar Evers deserves the best science building, student center, and classroom. So I certainly congratulate you for that very important accomplishment. Second, I am new to New York. I've been here about almost 2 years as president of the National Urban League. And I just want you to know that when I got selected as president of the National Urban League and had to move here to New York, I made a few phone calls, and some people said, well, you're going to New York, you gotta live on the Upper East Side. And then somebody else said, no, you gotta live on the West Side. And somebody said, no, come uptown to Harlem. And then somebody said, well, get through the tunnel and go out to Jersey or Westchester where you can have a yard. I want you to know I turned them all down and decided that I'd live right here in Brooklyn. Right here. And whenever anyone asks me, I tell them, this is the people's borough. The borough of Brooklyn, the borough of color, the borough of the rainbow, the mosaic, and as we say down where I am, the gumbo. A great mixture and a collection. So I'm proud to be here, and I'm honored to be here with the 5,400 students who make up this great student body here at Medgar Evers College. Dr. Jackson has just given me a few minutes because I know you all have to leave at 1:10 to go on to other things. So just permit me to take a few minutes today to try to talk a little bit about the state of Black America in 2005, which is a subject we have to always carefully examine, carefully analyze, with an eye not just towards the past, but with an important eye towards the future. I look up and I see Medgar Evers, and you can't help but reflect on the fact that Medgar Evers and Malcolm X, 40 years since his tragic assassination, this month, Dr. King, Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney, the 4 little girls in Birmingham, all of these people were freedom fighters who gave up their life, because they believed in the principles of equality and justice and a better America. 40 years later, and we're now 50 years since Sister Rosa refused to give up her seat down in Montgomery, and Dr. King was propelled to the leadership of the Montgomery Improvement Association and later the SCLC. 50 years since that, 40 years since the historic civil rights days, it is important to ask, to discuss and debate how far have we come. And it's important to discuss it and debate it and think about it, not for the sake of it, but because history can guide us to the future. Because what your generation and our generation must ask is, what is the struggle that we must wage in the 21st century? You see, we are here today because others sacrificed. We are here today because others gave. Community leaders here in Brooklyn, back in the late 60s, demanded a college, an institution of higher education, so that the people of color of Brooklyn would have a place they could call their own and go. And out of that, Medgar Evers College was born. Don't think for a minute that when someone came up with the idea that everybody said, it's wonderful, let's have a celebration. Most probably said, it costs too much, they don't need it, where would we put it? Why can't they just go here or there or elsewhere? But they fought, and they struggled, and they demanded, and now this institution lives and thrives and creates educational opportunity for so many people. When we think about where we have come, it is very important to celebrate the fact that in record numbers, African Americans have achieved positions of power. In the elected sphere, in this city alone, almost half the members of the New York City Council are from communities of color. If you look down the road, down I-95, down to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, in January, 43 African Americans were inaugurated as members of Congress, 42 in the House, 1 in the United States Senate, Barack Obama, a record number of African American members of Congress. If you look to the states, and you look to the cities, and you look to the counties, you see record numbers of African American elected officials, serving with distinction, serving with honor in many elected positions. If you look at colleges and universities, if you look at high schools and high school graduation rates, yes, we have too high a high school dropout rate, but in 2005, there are more African Americans graduating from high school today than ever before. It's hard to believe that in 2005, it's 80+%. 40 years ago, that number was less than 50%. And if you look at colleges and universities all across the land, in the last several months, I've been to Winston-Salem State University, North Carolina Central University, just to name a few, where there are men and women like you, brothers and sisters like you, coming to school every single day, working hard to get an education so that they can advance themselves. Many against great odds, many raising families, many holding jobs, many borrowing money, many juggling many, many balls. But out here working and struggling and fighting. If you look at African Americans from an economic standpoint, you're going to see that more African Americans can call themselves middle class today than ever before. More in the working class than ever before. And I know more of us out here own Lexuses and Benzes, got the best clothes, got all kind of fancy phones. We've got a lot of material possessions. I want to paint a picture that yes, there has been important progress in 40 years. Yes, there have been advances in 40 years. But I also want you to know that the glass is not full, and that despite important advances, we lag behind on so many fronts. Let me give you some examples. While in fact the black poverty rate has been cut in half in 40 years, there are 3 times as many black people in poverty today than there are white Americans. Despite the fact that there are more African Americans who count themselves as middle class, count themselves as stable working class than ever before, the economic status of black America is just a little bit better than half that of the majority community. While there are more black people in high places, in business and higher education before, the fact of the matter is that the black unemployment rate in America has dramatically increased in the last 2, 3 to 4 years. And it is back to being over 2 times higher than that of the majority community. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we have come a great distance, but make no mistake, there is a long way to go. And I want to place a burden on your generation and on my generation. And that is a burden to say no to complacency. That is a burden to say no to apathy. That is a burden to say no to selfishness. I got mine. I don't care about my brother or my sister. Because the responsibility to move us and move this needle in the 21st century, the next several steps, falls not on someone else, but it falls on you. It falls on me. It falls on us using what we have to take us to the next step. I dare say that our parents and grandparents had far less than we had. They had less money. They even in the South didn't even have the right to vote, didn't have the right to try on clothes in stores, didn't and couldn't even, in my hometown, New Orleans, into the 1970s, they wouldn't even hire a black man to pick up garbage for the city. Our parents and grandparents had a whole lot less than we had. But they had something I wonder if we had. They had nerve. They had courage. They had conviction. They were willing to sacrifice. Their efforts and their movement were not just about them. It was about, will my children and my grandchildren lead a better life, have a better life? Well, we are their children, and we are their grandchildren. And in Black History Month, we ought to tell them, thank you so very much. You did your job. You led the way. You sacrificed much. And the simple question is, what are we going to do? So what are we going to do? First of all, I believe that every single one of us must be an engaged and involved citizen. What does that mean? We have got to be registered voters. I don't care if you look up at the people who are running and said they all turkeys. Ain't none of them talking about what I want to hear, and I'm not voting for any of them, because when you say that, somebody else is going to call the shot. Somebody else is going to make the decision. So if you got to hold your nose, cover your eyes, and do eeny, meeny, miny, mo, vote for somebody to send a message that we're not going to be taken for granted. Be an involved and engaged citizen. And there's a mayor's race and elections coming up in New York City. The first thing this student body ought to do is invite all these candidates out here. Invite them all out here and tell them, leave the television cameras behind. Come on out here. We want to talk to you about the future of New York City. Number two, every single one of us has a responsibility to community. Every single one of us. I don't care what you decide to be involved in, whether it's your church, a community group, a professional group, we got to be involved. We've got to be active and involved in institutions that are working every day to better our lives. We've got to do a little civic tithing. A little civic tithing, giving a little bit time. Choose something that you believe in and give a little bit of your time. Join a civil rights organization, the NAACP, the Urban League, give to the United Negro College Fund. Get involved in a student organization. Be a part, as Brother Malcolm said, the solution, because if you're not on the side of the solution, you are indeed the problem. Number three, it is very important that we recognize that the most important set of issues facing our communities and facing this nation is the closure of the economic gap that exists. This economic gap is going to be, I believe, the defining struggle of the 21st century. It's the gap between black and white. It's the gap between brown and white. It's the gap between rich and poor. It isn't an easy thing to confront. First place it starts is with schooling and with education. Those of you who are here, whatever it takes, finish your education. Get that degree. And let me break it down why you want to get that degree. And this is what we have to tell our young people. It is very simple. A person who finishes high school is going to earn twice as much money over their life as one who doesn't. A person who finishes college, as opposed to only going to high school, is going to earn 4 times as much over his or her life as a person who only finishes high school. A person that finishes graduate school is going to earn 6 times as much over their life as one who finishes high school. It's about the soft money. It's about the Benjamins. It's about the ducats. It's about money. It's about earnings. It's not much more complex than that. We can talk all day long about how a person who's educated is more mannered, more articulate, a better citizen, and that is true. But at the end of the day, with an education, you're going to do better in the workplace. You're going to earn more money. There are a few people out there that God gives special talents to, who can earn a lot of money and do wonderful things and never finish high school. They're 1 in a million. And I might know 2 or 3 of them, but I sure don't know a whole lot of them. Most of us are just not like that. God just didn't give us that much talent and that much ability. Most of us were given what we have, and we have to develop it. So we must work on closing the economic gap. What are some small things you can do to close the economic gap? It's important that you think about spending your money with businesses in our community. It is very important that you spend. One of the beautiful things about this borough of Brooklyn is that I see so many small businesses owned by people of color. African Americans and Caribbean Americans. How many times do we walk past them to go to one of the big stores as opposed to giving somebody in the neighborhood or in the community a chance? We can vote with our dollars. We can support our own. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that you're not going to be able to buy in our community, but we must make a much stronger effort to support those businesses in our community. Because when we support them, we are helping them to grow. The other thing that we can do, we have to instill in our children a sense of the value of money. Money is not just about how and what I can buy with it. We live in a society that pushes purchasing and consumerism on us 24/7. I got a son. He's almost 3 years old. The last 4 days, all he's been hollering for is McDonald's. And I'm asking myself, we've never been in a McDonald's before. Where is he getting this from? Well, I put a little video in the TV, and there was good old Ronald McDonald hanging out with SpongeBob and Thomas the Tank Engine, and you all have kids, you know who all these people are, all these personalities are. And I said, wow, this is interesting. They're working on my man at the age of 3, getting him thinking about spending money with them already. So whenever we walk by, McDonald's, and we say, no Donald's, we going this way. So we must instill in our children a sense of responsibility about money, about what they need. It's a tough thing to do, but it's an important thing to do because it's a value that we have. It's a value that we must build in our own communities. The final thing I want to share with you today is to draw from a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King talked about the need for more of us to be thermostats and not thermometers. And you know, a thermometer measures the temperature of things, measures the prevailing wind and the prevailing opinion. A thermostat sets the temperature. And we need more people who are going to be thermostats, who are going to be leaders, who are going to set the temperature. As Dr. Jackson said, we are working on the issue of black males. Next week, I'm going to be in Memphis, Tennessee. We're going down, Dr. Jackson, to the Shelby County Correctional Facility. We're going to have a town hall meeting with the men at the Shelby County Correctional Facility. And we're going to talk to them about from whence they came, the situations that they're dealing with now, but a lot about what happens when they exit, when they return, and when they come out. This issue of black males requires thermostats because the condition and the situation of the black male affects the black woman, affects the black children, affects the black parents, affects the status of the black economy. We have 600,000 people a year returning from correctional facilities back into our communities. And we've got to work to build a way to assist them in transitioning. We shouldn't penalize a person because they've been in jail and say once they come out, they can never vote again. We need to give them the opportunity to reintegrate back into society and give them a right to vote. We've got to find a way so that a conviction on one's record is not a bar to transitioning and getting a good job in so many professions as it is today. We need thermostats, not thermometers. We need thermostats and people who are going to be leaders. And we need thermostats in your generation. Because your generation, 40 years ago, during the civil rights era, it was the young people of America who led the way. High school students and college students went to jail in Birmingham, Alabama. In 1955, Martin Luther King was 26 years old when he led that movement. When he lost his life in Memphis in 1968, he was but a man of 39. Malcolm X was a man of 40 when he lost his life. It was young people that raised the moral issue of the war in Vietnam 40 years ago. It was young people who sat in at lunch counters. It was young people who led the freedom rides. It was young people who said to an older generation, we just think that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we're going to change the course of America. So the state of Black America in 2005 is that we must celebrate progress and say to those that we've made no progress that they are wrong. But we also must say to those who say we have arrived that we have not arrived, and we have a lot more work to do. We have gaps to close. We have struggles to wage. But at the end of the day, I hope that this generation, that your generation and our generation will choose to pick up the baton, pick up the mantle, and be thermostats and not thermometers. Thank you very much, Medgar Evers College. Thank you.
In the sanctuary of learning, minds and space merge in a tranquil setting. Glass, air, light, and space for intellects to grow, that blossom seeds of knowledge, unfolding in a contemplative world of books, reading, and information, sturdy, steady, and strong, creating success one student at a time. Medgar Evers College. Come and learn.
Egypt, land of the pharaohs in magnificent splendor. Join Dr. Crawford's annual educational tour to Egypt from July 23rd to August 6, 2005. This trip includes a 5-star luxury cruise up the Nile, luxury hotels, and shopping. Visit the pyramids, Sphinx, the temples at Abu Simbel, Karnak, Luxor, Valley of the Kings, and much more. For more information, call 718-756-8904 or visit www.sankofaworldpublishers.com.
Medgar Evers College of the City University of New York, where education transforms lives. Founded in 1970 through community activism and educational need, Medgar Evers College is a beacon of learning in the heart of Brooklyn. The college offers an abundance of affordable degree programs with its 4 schools: the School of Business, the School of Liberal Arts and Education, the School of Science, Health, and Technology, and the School of Continuing Education and Community Programs. Medgar Evers College offers more than 25 accredited degree programs designed to help students achieve their education and professional goals. The college is currently home to more than 5,000 students, and since it's opened its doors has graduated over 7,000 scholars who have become leaders in the fields of business, politics, medicine, and law. Medgar Evers College affords its students access to state-of-the-art computer laboratories and facilities, as well as situating them at the center of the greatest human laboratory on earth, New York City. Life for a Medgar Evers College student is vibrant and dynamic. Students may avail themselves to a variety of student organizations, including the critically acclaimed Amani Singers and Dancers, the award-winning college chapter of the American Marketing Association, the Adafi College newspaper, College Computer Club, the Pre-Law Society, and a variety of college sports teams. The college's community involvement has led to the creation of a number of academic centers, including the Male Development and Empowerment Center, the Center for Women's Development, the Center for Black Literature, the Center for Law and Social Justice, the Youth Development Initiative, and the Du Bois Bunch Center. In 2004, the college will break ground on 2 new buildings, the Student Support Services Building and Academic Complex 1, both of which will propel Medgar Evers College to the educational forefront of the 21st century. Medgar Evers College faces the future with a firm commitment to excellence. At Medgar Evers College, we create success, one student at a time.
Gregorio Myers is proud to be among the rich legacy of Medgar Evers College graduates. At Medgar, he majored in business administration and minored in public administration. He was actively involved in student life. He served as editor-in-chief of Adafi, our student newspaper. He was the first Medgar student elected chair of the University Student Senate, elected chairman of the Public Administration Department in fall of 2004. Professor Myers leads a department of dedicated faculty and students whose mission is to unlock the inner workings of government, locally, nationally, and globally. Dr. Myers has served for the past 8 years as a contract mediator for the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, mediating Title VII 1964 civil rights cases. He has worked in the corporate arena as a business consultant for J.P. Morgan Chase and for Coca-Cola. He is a practicing attorney whose interests focus on federal matters, including regulatory matters, immigration, employment, and election law. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our distinguished presidential lecturer for this Black History Month 2005, Dr. Gregorio Myers.
Good evening. To Dr. Edison O. Jackson, president of this great institution called Medgar Evers College, to Dean Flateau, dean of our School of Business, who've just led us to national accreditation, to you, my students, faculty, staff, and community members, it is indeed an honor for me to be here this evening to be asked to be part of this presidential lecture series. I am fortunate to be among the elite members, as I was told, of members who the president invite, who from high civic office, from government, from business. And I was just informed by my colleague that I'm the second alumni graduate to hold this honor. So indeed, it is an honor for me to be here. This evening, I would like to share with you my journey as a student leader in my professional career and watching the college grow during the last 20 years. I offer myself as a tangible example product of Medgar Evers College. Now, 20 years ago, believe it or not, no, I don't look old, but I sat right where you were. 20 years ago, I entered this institution trying to find my way to higher education. 15 years ago, I exited. So this evening, we will share some of that journey that I took. Before I begin to talk about that, this is an institution of higher learning, and we should be proud that we have the opportunity and the privilege to have higher education. Well, many of you come from the Caribbean countries. Some of you come from African countries. Some of you come from Latin American countries. It is in my research and my knowledge that in many of those countries, higher education is a privilege. There's no such thing as public higher education as we have here in New York City and here at Medgar Evers or at the City University of New York. In many of the Caribbean countries, it is indeed for the elite, those with money, those with power, those with influence that can send their children abroad to study. Part of that is economic reasons that these small countries perhaps don't have the resources to have public higher education. So you're privileged, you're fortunate to be part of this great institution where it's really public and you're getting a quality education. Well, as we talk about Black History Month, 400 years ago, as slaves, former slaves, we were forbidden to read or write, to learn. We were enslaved. We toiled the land for 400 years and built this country. It's a rich country, very, very rich under the backs of African American or slave. We labor to make it what it is today. Well, the powers to be continued throughout history to oppress us. Well, we all know and we all have studied the history of the civil rights movement. In 1955, seems like a long time ago, but it's not. We finally was able to integrate the public school system after a landmark Supreme Court decision, Brown versus Board of Ed. 1955, still struggling, had to take Thurgood Marshall and other civil rights leaders to really open the doors. It had to take the military to open up the doors of the public high schools. Arkansas, Little Rock, the 9 students, trying to get an education not long ago. Well, again, this is what I'm saying. You're fortunate. I am fortunate. I am privileged to be able to come from Panama and have an opportunity to come here to Medgar Evers, and now I can talk about my dreams, but it occurred here. Well, the oppressor still continued because in 1965, by the role of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we was able to be successful to get the Voting Rights Act passed. The right to vote, 1965. Perhaps we take for granted because it occurred a long time ago. But in reality, it's not so long that we were not even given the right to vote. Well, we were given the right to vote in 1965. In the year 2000, our civil rights and our voting rights were still tampered with in 2000 during the election. How far have we come? Well, 1955, the doors were open, integration of public school. Are we better? Are our students better educated now that the school system has been integrated? Well, that answer seems to be yes, in some instances no. My remarks, my research says no. 400 years of oppression, our students are still in high school in the K through 12 struggling. There are problems, but that goes to the fact of who control our school system, which talks about power. Well, the Voting Rights Act, certainly you have an opportunity to make changes as a college student because you're very much empowered. This year, we celebrate 35 years of this great institution, Medgar Evers College, founded on the backs of community residents who thought it was important that we didn't have to travel 20 blocks down to Brooklyn College, but that it was important that this community deserved quality higher education. Not long ago, 35 years. So you sit here, we're sitting in a nice auditorium, we look and we see Medgar Evers, who fought and lost his life fighting for the right of us to be educated, to be free. So we are certainly privileged. I am, you are, to be in company of such great people who have struggled and fought to make us what we are today. I want to share a little bit as we talk about leadership about how I was able to move from point A to point B. After graduating from this great institution, I was privileged to go on to work in an array of different places. As you heard, Dean Fletto talked about my experiences, and I continue to reflect in those experiences. In the corporate world, we know how African Americans and Latinos are the numbers where we fit, the positions that we hold. And talking about the difference between an Ivy League education and a Medgar education, many of my colleagues sitting in the audience can attest to the fact that I see many times in the position that I'm in corporate America, or on the boards that I serve, that I have the opportunity to reach out and help someone else, or the decision that I have to make in a position as a member of the Environmental Control Board, looking at the facts. My colleagues, perhaps who are the same skin color, but perhaps went to a different institution, will come out with a different outcome. You see, I understand history and where we've come from. I understand the struggle that that our people continue to go through. So my decisions are based on the fact that I know that I cannot necessarily just make an arbitrary decision that will impact upon the community or the society. For example, if I'm mediating a case, and I've mediated several cases, and I've had high-profile attorneys sitting next to me mediating the case for the large corporations, and in doing this, they will sit, and my role is to sit with both of them and say, how can we help this person who's complaining that they're being discriminated on, lost their job because of race? And my role, because of coming from Medgar Evers College, because knowing the history of who I am, is to help that attorney, and both of those attorneys rather, to come to a settlement, to make sure that I'm not disenfranchising that community, that that person of color or not color go back to their community empty, and the black attorney or the white attorney from the Ivy League institution has his Armani suits on and feel impressed that he has just won the case. And in fact, the plaintiff is still suffering because she has just suffered the fact that she's been humiliated on the job, denied access to promotion because of her race, and she came to a forum where she believed that help will be there. Now, that's how I see the difference between a so-called Ivy League education and a Medgar education. Now, I'm not saying that I don't apply the rule of law. My colleagues in here who understand that. I do, but I try to find a common ground. How can we best help to resolve this matter? And I think that's how the degree at Medgar has helped me. I can go further and give you other examples. I once had the opportunity in a corporate setting. I was called by the senior VP to say, hey, Greg, I'm going to be out, and I have someone from the Wharton School who will be coming in, and you have a bachelor's degree in business, you have a law degree, and in corporate America sometimes you work in teams, as this is a school of business. And this person is very meticulous about who he sits with and the advice that he gets. And he said, I can't be there, so I'm asking you to be there. Well, the individual came in and we worked, and he was interested in going to the Middle East to do some investment in some projects in the Middle East. Now, setting up some corporations and some business entities in the Middle East. Now, I'm not from the Middle East, and I'm not a graduate of Wharton, but given the fact that I understand public policy, that I understand research, and I was able to do some research on the Middle East, the particular area in Dubai that he was interested to do some work, and I understand the rules and regulations and international law, and I understand, coming from Medgar and taking strong courses in liberal arts, culture, religion, and how that impacts upon the decision-making and transactional matters in how to work with that. I was able to meet with this high-powered individual from the School of Wharton, which is a MBA program. For those of you who may not know, it's a graduate program where you receive an MBA in Pennsylvania, highly schooled, recognized. And at the end of that session, he said, well, this was wonderful. This was wonderful. I really had the planned out what I wanted to do, but you really helped me along. And he said, well, let me guess. Not bad, huh? For a Yale graduate. I said, He said, well, I see maybe that's kind of a Columbia flavor. That's kind of a Columbia MBA flavor that you were giving me. I said, not quite. He said, well, I don't want to keep guessing, but, well, maybe UPenn. it seems to me the way how you were able to articulate the issue and present the overall arching problem of engaging in business there, it seems that from my colleagues who went to the University of Pennsylvania will elaborate that way. I said, well, I'm afraid to tell you, struck out again, none of the three. I said, Medgar Evers College. He said, where? I said, Medgar Evers College of the City University of New York. He said, no, I mean your MBA. I said, no, my bachelor's degree. The law school, City University of New York School of Law. I said, have you heard of Medgar Evers? He said, no, but I sure do now. So, yes, indeed. And I just had to share that with you because, again, now, here you have someone who have never heard of this institution. But the fact is that our School of Business prepares students for leaders, for leadership roles in our community. There's so much that threaten our lives, our day-to-day lives in our communities, that I'm going to challenge you and charge you to be a leader, to step up to the plate, as you say today, to be an enemy combatant to those problems. Okay, and how do we do that? In my class, I teach my students, my class of public policy, intro to government, to be part of the agenda setting. The social ills that I just mentioned, they represent an array of A to Z with social problems that are affecting our communities. And many times we don't know where to turn or who to go to for help. Well, I'll ask you this, and again, how much of our community resources do we control? Not much. Well, you can make a change by being actively involved on the agenda setting. And how do we do that? You're privileged to be educated. You are now part of Medgar Evers College student body. You understand the civic engagement that you're responsible and not only leave it to your elected officials to look and attack these social problems that are affecting your community. Be passionate about something. Be passionate about something in your community, in your life that you don't like, that you want to see you change. Martin Luther King used to say, and I will paraphrase it, we start to die the minute we stop thinking about being engaged in the things that we care most of. That means also the community dies. And that's sad. So if you are not passionate, if you are not trained, and if you are not educated, then how do you make those decisions? But you are. So I'm challenging you to, if you see that there are poverties in your community, if you're not voting, if you're not exercising your right, then you need to start doing that. Now you have elected officials. Elections year are coming again. You're going to be voting for them. But I want you to get up in the morning. Every morning you get up, I'm going to challenge you to walk around and see what is wrong in your community. And there is a lot of problems. I said earlier that our school system, we still have, our students are still struggling, K through 12, within the Board of Ed. We just had a court decision about the proper funding in our communities. There's always negative issues that affect us. And I wonder why, but it's by design. But it's incumbent upon you who are educated to be transform the problems that in their community into solutions and make it work. You're being educated in the Bible, as Moedi quoted the Bible. Proverbs 4:7 in wisdom said, wisdom is a principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all things, get understanding. Those of you who read your Bible, with all things, get understanding. So I'm challenging you today to get understanding of the issues that are confronting your community. Now, what is happening in Brooklyn? I'll share a little bit. There's a new stadium. There's a new stadium, a proposed stadium to bring the Nets, right? Bring the Nets here to Brooklyn. How many of the businesses in that stadium will we own? Someone said none. It shouldn't be. What about the houses? Those neighbors who will be disenfranchised. I challenge you as educated students to fight the power by using your skills, by actively working with your elected official to challenge those issues. How much of the resources from the sales of the tickets is going to come back into our neighborhoods? How many of the businesses around the surrounding area are we going to own? That's important ownership. We look around in the communities, the bodega and the businesses are owned by others. Why? Why? This college graduated 7,000 students in its 35 years. And Dean, I'm challenging the faculty and the staff to put more leadership training within the academics, that our students know that once they sit here, it's not only to get an education and go out and make thousands or millions of dollars, but to reach back into our community and make it stronger. I challenge you to look at the educational value of your community, the intellectual capital. Who are the bright and smart people in their communities that are going to waste, and why? How are young people? And again, I challenge you to play a role in that. Now, it's not easy. You're busy, you have your class to attend, some of you have family, you have children, but you have to make a choice in how you're going to continue to live your life. Where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years from now? Are you waiting for government to open its doors to make life better for you? Or are you going to take the responsibility? See, part of the problem is that as a people, we don't take responsibilities. We don't go to the voting booth. We don't exercise organization to control the resources. We don't control the number of properties in our neighborhoods. And I know there are other factors that affect us, which certainly is racism that prevents us. Go to a bank to get a loan, they may deny you. But Koreans and other groups have come and have partnership. Certain Caribbeans and other groups have been able to do that to empower their neighborhood, to make it better. And this is a school of business that we're teaching students to go out there to be leaders, to ownership. See, many of you come from the Caribbean, and we know there that ownership is important. And you're not here to rent. And you want to work for yourself. And at this institution, that's where we are to be, in a position of challenging you to use your resources to be leaders in the community. You see, the community will always look the way it looks like if you are waiting for John or for Raheem or Daquan to stand up and make a change. The neighborhoods will continue to look the same. Our school system will be dilapidated. Crime in our communities will continue to be the same because we don't challenge the powers that be. We move into neighborhoods. See, and with education, you make an informed decision. We move into neighborhoods. We haven't checked out the neighborhoods by the precinct council to see the number of rapes that have occurred, the number of robberies, because then with an informed decision and being educated, you wouldn't move in a certain neighborhood. You wouldn't take your child to a particular daycare if you know that that daycare hasn't been funded. You see, as students, I challenge you to move beyond just coming to the college, having fun, and leaving, and earning millions or thousands of dollars. I challenge you to get involved in student activities, get involved in civic participation, be a leader in campus. Take the skills that you've learned here and take it outside and build the community. Be a strong, independent person. Now,